When we think of the Middle Ages, our minds usually jump to a dark, kind of primitive time. But what if I told you that era holds a forgotten blueprint for survival? A kind of genius that, believe it or not, modern science is only just now starting to appreciate.
I mean, really think about it. What if the grid failed tomorrow? No lights, no internet, no running water, just silence. For us, that's a full-blown catastrophe, right? The end of the world as we know it. But for someone living 700 years ago, that wasn't a disaster. It was just Tuesday.
And that's really the heart of it. Where we see absolute panic and the collapse of everything, our medieval ancestors just saw, well, normal life. See, their world wasn't built on a fragile electrical grid. It was built on resilience, on these incredible systems that we've completely forgotten about. So, let's start with the most basic need of all, shelter. I mean, how did people survive the brutal winters of the Little Ice Age, when temperatures would plunge to minus 40 degrees? Well, the answer wasn't just grit. It was some seriously brilliant engineering.
Okay, so meet the masonry heater, also known as a kochelofen. Now this was not your simple, everyday fireplace. A better way to think of it is as a thermal battery. You'd burn a really hot, fast fire for just an hour or two. The amazing maze of stone channels inside would soak up almost all of that heat, and then it would just radiate it back into the room for the next 12, even 24 hours.
And the difference in performance? It's staggering. A modern open fireplace is just shockingly inefficient. It loses about 85% of its heat right up the chimney. But the medieval kochelofen, it captured up to 98% of the fire's energy. It was a nearly perfect heating machine.
So the obvious question is, why don't we all have one of these? Well, because our modern homes just aren't built to support them. These things weigh thousands of pounds, and our lightweight construction methods and building codes, they often label them as non-compliant. We've literally traded this incredible resiliency for convenience.
And here's another clever design, the Grubenhaus. During the Great Famine of the 14th century, it turned out that communities living in these structures had a way higher survival rate. And it was all because of one simple, brilliant idea. Instead of building on the earth, they built into it.
This chart really shows why it worked so well. A few feet below the surface, the Earth stays at a pretty stable temperature, right around 13 degrees Celsius. So, while a modern home has to fight this massive 40-degree temperature gap to stay warm, the Grubenhaus only had to overcome a tiny 7-degree difference. That small margin wasn't just about comfort, it was about survival.
And what about the roof? We tend to think of thatch as primitive, but get this, it's actually a high-performance insulation system. 10 inches of properly laid thatch has an R value, that's the insulation rating, of 26.6. To get that same value today, you need 7 inches of high-density fiberglass. They were getting modern insulation values with nothing but plants and skill. Amazing.
Okay, so they were warm, but how on earth did they manage food and water without a single watt of electricity? Well, this is where their incredible understanding of biology and chemistry really shines. Let's just talk about an egg for a second. When a hen lays an egg, she coats it in this invisible protective layer called the cuticle or the bloom. This natural film seals up thousands of microscopic pores, basically creating a biological fortress that keeps nasty bacteria like salmonella out.
So an unwashed egg with that cuticle totally intact can stay fresh for weeks, sometimes even months, just at room temperature. But the moment we wash it to put on supermarket shelves, we destroy that natural armor. That's what makes it completely dependent on refrigeration. We literally washed away its resilience.
For water, they basically built living purifiers. By planting reeds near a water source, they used the dense root network to trap all the silt. Then, the good bacteria living on those roots would break down pathogens. You add a layer of charcoal to absorb toxins, and what you get is an ancient, zero-energy version of a modern carbon filter.
And this is just incredible. To preserve meat without a freezer, they used the wood ash from their fire. With a pH level as alkaline as bleach, the ash would kill spoilage bacteria on contact, keeping meat safe to eat for up to 3 weeks. Simple, super effective, and zero-cost chemistry.
And this mindset of practical genius wasn't just for food and shelter. Nope. They designed their entire environment for survival, turning everyday objects into brilliant tactical tools.
Okay, take the spiral staircase in a castle.
it almost always twists clockwise. Now, that wasn't for looks, it was pure battlefield geometry. For a right-handed defender coming down the stairs, their sword arm had a full open swing, but for a right-handed attacker coming up, their sword arm was pinned against the central pillar. That's architecture as a weapon.
What about fire? You know, a modern lighter can fail when it's wet or cold or just out of fuel. The medieval solution was something called charcloth. By heating fabric in a sealed tin, they created this carbonized material that could catch the faintest spark and turn it into a glowing ember. It was reliable, reusable fire insurance.
Even their clothing was built completely differently. Through a process called fulling, they would pound and agitate wool until the fibers locked together, creating this super dense, windproof fabric. But crucially, they kept the natural lanolin, which made it waterproof. Their coats were like armor, designed to last 50 years, not just a single season like ours. So why did we abandon these incredibly durable techniques? The answer is, well, it's pretty sobering. They didn't really fit into an economic model that's built on constant consumption and planned obsolescence.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? What's the point?
It's really about rediscovering a mindset that we've completely lost: resilience.
The core principles they lived by were simple, but so powerful. They worked with nature, not against it. They built resilience into everything, from their homes to their clothes. They actually understood the science of their world, and they valued things that would last, not things that were just convenient.
Look, for all its miracles, modernity has made a trade. We've gained incredible comfort and convenience, no doubt, but we've paid for it with our own capability, with our own self-sufficiency. Our systems are so efficient that we've forgotten how to stand on our own 2 feet.
I think this really sums up our whole journey here. We traded the rugged, adaptable knowledge of our ancestors for a comfortable but incredibly fragile dependency on systems we don't control and, if we're honest, barely understand.
Which really just leaves us with one final question. If it all goes dark tomorrow, not for an hour but for days or weeks, who do you become? Are you a victim of the system's failure, or do you carry a piece of that forgotten resilience inside you? Something to think about.